Hey guys, this time around we're taking a look at Titanfall 2 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now the game is currently running at a 1080p with the lowest in-game graphical settings. There are a few things that I would suggest that you change. There are certain graphics settings that instead of disabling them, you could just set to low or medium. There are others that you should probably turn on. For example, for a lot of the testing, I actually had the texture streaming disabled, and that made the textures look very bad. Now, the game will give you a warning if you try to turn it up to even the lowest settings, saying that you don't have enough VRAM. This you can safely ignore because of the fact that because this system is an APU, it's pretty much going to utilize as much of the RAM as it needs to for video RAM. So pretty much setting it to the lowest texture filter setting is going to let the textures actually look decent without having to worry about it actually affecting performance, because again, we have more than enough RAM to actually use as video RAM. And it's another one of those things where I get asked a lot of the times, should I increase the amount of VRAM in the BIOS? No, leave it alone. The APU is designed to essentially allocate as much RAM as it needs to for the video RAM. You don't actually need to dedicate any RAM to it. It will automatically do things itself. All that would happen by you increasing the amount of dedicated RAM in the BIOS is essentially just going to lock away certain RAM that will never be utilized by the system itself outside of video memory. And this is just a very inefficient way to do your system, because at the end of the day, the game was going to utilize that RAM anyway. And in the situations where you're not gaming, why lock away video RAM when you can just use it as system RAM if it's necessary? There's just no reason to lock your RAM like that. But the way that the game is actually performing at these settings is actually very impressive. I was blown away because considering Apex Legends does not run anywhere near this well, I was very impressed with how the game was performing. I had a lot of fun playing like this. Titanfall 2 actually has a very fun single player campaign, and it just blows my mind how well it runs on here, especially because we're running at the 15 watts and we're already at an above 60 FPS average with 1% lows that are just slightly under that. We're pretty much getting a fantastic gaming experience here, and I'm blown away by how well it was performing. And the fact that it performed this well with just the 15 watts pretty much made me very excited to see what 25 watts could do. And again, the textures don't look great because I had the texture streaming pretty much disabled, but again, setting it to the lowest setting is going to not impact the gaming performance at all, and it's just going to let the textures actually look decent instead of just looking like absolute dog water like they do right now. And really what we're seeing here is the fact that we're very close to just being able to actually do some high refresh rate gaming. So let's see what 25 watts can actually do. And at the 25 watts, I actually even managed to turn up some of the graphics settings. Now at the 25 watts, the main things that I actually ended up turning on was the fact that sun shadow detail was pretty much set from disabled to low. Spot shadow detail was set from off to low. Dynamic spotted shadows are now enabled, and the model detail was set to high. Everything else was left to pretty much what it was set to before. And of course, the texture streaming budget is set to very low with 2 GB of VRAM. And the level of performance that we're getting here, even though we do have slightly increased graphic settings, we're getting still overall better performance, and we are comfortably hitting an average of 90 FPS, and the 1% lows are above 60. And the gaming experience that we're getting here overall is pretty fantastic. Of course, temperatures are noticeably higher than they were before, so unless you really need this higher refresh rate, like let's say you're using a monitor that has a actual high refresh rate display, you really don't benefit anything from setting things to 25 watts compared to the 15 watts, especially because we are introducing more heat and noise. Temperatures aren't too bad right now, but it was a specifically cold day in my room while I was doing this testing, so the ambient temperatures were low enough that we weren't hitting into the 80s. But if it was just a normal hot day here in Texas, what would have ended up happening is we would have probably been in the mid 80s. And that's something you always have to remember, the fact that your ambient temperatures are going to greatly affect what temperatures you're going to get while using the system. While I might get 75 degrees right now, right this second, while playing the game in my room with the specific ambient temperatures that I had at that time, it might be different for you. You might be living somewhere that is hotter or colder than where I am currently, and that's going to affect what temperatures are going to look like for you. And it's why I show you the difference between 15 watts and 25 watts, because if you live in a region that really won't let you set things to 25 watts without potentially risking boiling your computer, I would really just recommend that you keep things at the stock 15 watts and just enjoy the level of performance that you get out of that, especially because at least in this game, it's still very decent. And it makes sense because this is running on the Source engine, just a heavily modified version of it. Though again, Apex Legends is just a completely different beast compared to this. And I wish Apex ran this well, honestly. If Apex had this level of performance, it would actually be pretty incredible, but I have not been able to get it to perform this well on this system. Though I haven't tried Apex in a while, I might have to give it another go just to see if there have been any improvements, but that might just be pure copium on my part, though it's not to say that I'm the biggest Apex fan anyway. I think of the battle royales that are popular, Apex is my least favorite, but it might just be that I'm old and the movement really messes with me. But overall, I'm very happy with how this game actually ended up performing, and I actually ended up playing this way longer than I actually anticipated. I pretty much ended up putting in 2 hours at just the 25 watts alone, just because I was having such a good time playing like this. So if you want a really awesome game to actually be able to play on your system here that isn't just Stardew Valley, I would definitely recommend picking this up. You're going to have a blast with the campaign. I don't really play the multiplayer in this or co-op or anything like that. It was just a single player that I was playing, and I really had a great time with it. So if this is right up your alley, I would definitely recommend the game. But anyways, I appreciate you watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.